Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast, synopsis, as part of an audio podcast series, the percolation, and this audio podcast is part of a spectrum. Excuse me, and that's part of an audio podcast under and around the Spectre and Newsflash and the Bostick's Torpedo. This audio podcast is as part of the specials, and this audio podcast is part of the cases and evidence based. This in around this audio podcast series, there will be a look. Excuse me. There will be a look at a sort of a case study, if you will, that had been delved into by a student M Hussain M Hussain who has been doing some collaborative works, developing some collaborative works at present. At present, and at the same time, this is sort of a look at sort of a case study, looking at Staph aureus in osteomyelitis, as part of osteomyelitis diagnoses. Excuse me. At the same time, this audio podcast, this audio podcast is sort of an audio podcast that is sort of in sort of recognition of M Hussein's works, and where this works is primarily M Hussein's works, and in as part of this audio podcast series, as in audio podcasts under Storm Robotics production. Under Storm Robotics Productions, there is and will be a sort of list of sort of references or citations that listeners and viewers can check out in around a further reading and further works in around the theme of this audio podcast and audio podcast series. This audio podcast series, again, will delve into some of the aspects in around Staph aureus, Staphylococcus aureus in osteomyelitis diagnoses. The audio podcast series will look into some introduction, some aspects of introduction, some aspects in around sort of the some of the sort of primitive, if you will, some of the primitive laboratory investigations, and some of the sort of aspects in around the microscopy, aspects, some aspects in around the more intensive laboratory investigations, such as the coagulation test, the DNase test, and the mannitol fermentation investigation. And then there'll be a look at sort of aspects of the mechanistics, some aspects in around excuse me, some aspects in around some aspects in around sort of the microbiological investigations, and linked with some of the sort of the biochemical or biochemistry investigations. And then there'll be a look at sort of sort of invest sort of investigations that sort of look at help sort of differentiate, if you will, sort of differentiate sort of differentiate sort of aspects of the diagnoses of Staph aureus, and including the use of spectrometry, and also there will be a look at some bases in around the advantages and disadvantages of bacterial identification methodologies, the sort of the advantages and disadvantages of some of the methodologies, laboratory methodologies, for example, in around the different forms of the different forms of microbiological assays that can be used, and some of the sort of advantages and disadvantages around those. And then this audio podcast series will have a basis in around a conclusion in around this sort of looking at this case study, and looking at again the diagnoses of osteomyelitis, and in around osteomyelitis and Staphylococcus aureus infection. So that draws this synopsis to a close. And again, this audio podcast series will have a list of citations and references where listeners, where listeners and viewers can check out further works in around the theme. This audio podcast series will be on Storm Robotics, in and through Storm Robotics social media, and again to emphasize that this audio podcast is attributed to one of the students who's doing some fantastic works, some fantastic collaborative works, and where this works is where M. Hussain is the primary author of this works, and where where Storm Robotics production is that audio podcast channel that looks to highlight aspects of laboratory medicine or pathology or blood sciences, and aspects such that there is a sort of an understanding of topics of important topics in amongst public in amongst the public, and where this where such and where aspects can be learned from. So that draws this audio podcast synopsis to a close. This audio podcast synopsis as part of the Percolation. This audio podcast is part of the Spectre and Newsflash. This audio podcast is part of the cases and evidence-based. This audio podcast is part of the Bostic's Torpedo and the Specials, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production.